Greetings, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Feels like fall already, doesn't it, with this nice cool weather we're having. I'm Mike Day. I'm the bond program, the capital bond program PMO director, and our PMO is our program management office. So I'll be kind of kicking things off here and handing it off to those that are in the details of delivering this amazing project, which has been a very significant civic urban planning project in partnership with our partners with TriMet and the city of Gresham. So with that, why don't we just go right into the slide deck and we'll introduce the East County Library project, which is the focus for today's presentation, but we'll provide a little bit of context and background on the overall library bond program. So if we can, whoever's controlling the...
Brittany, you want to pull up the slide deck?
Great. So we'll have a lot of beautiful graphics here, but this is just kind of that intro graphic into the East County Library, which is nested just south of the TriMet Gresham Station and across from City Hall. Next slide, please. This really represents kind of a broader brush review of all of the projects that we are actively developing across Multnomah County, which include 9 major projects of significance and 11 refresh projects that are more of a lighter touch on existing libraries. So today's focus, of course, is the East County flagship library. And we're gonna dive into the details on that in just a minute. Going back in time to November of 2020 during COVID, the constituents of the community of Multnomah County voted and passed for the ballot measure to approve this bond program, which was $387 million. Since then, there have been a combination of bond premiums and interest earnings and other income that's come into the project. So it's a $400 million plus bond program that touches every single library across the entire system. We're going to now focus in on the highlights for today, which is the East County Library. So if we want to move to the next slide, this slide really kind of speaks to the demographics and the kind of the why and the background and all the planning that went into the locating of the East County Library, which is really, again, it's when you think about kind of that spoke and hub concept, the library location is really a critical location in terms of that centrality to East County and to the city of Gresham. Next slide.
So within the...
To Anthony to talk a little bit about community engagement. And Anthony, go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm Anthony Trapani. I'm a senior project manager for Multnomah County. I oversee and coordinate with all of the agencies along with the design team and the construction team to actually bring this beautiful facility to fruition. So, across our bond portfolio, though, we have a pillar of making sure that we hear what the community wants. And this graphic here just is a portfolio-wide graphical representation of all of the outreach that we have done throughout everything to date. And that's only to date. So to date, we've only we're touching on the four of the major projects that Mike talked about. 3 of them are just starting up. 4 of them are coming online here in the next few months to 1 year. But again, through this process, we really needed to and wanted to find out what the community wanted to have. So this is just a graphical representation of all of the outreach that we've done, from surveys to interviews to focus groups. On the East County Library in particular, we actually partnered with some community library champions, the Black Economic Collective and El Programa Hispanico, to actually try to get even more feedback specific to the area and to that project. Next slide, please. So here is a graphical representation of the area in which the project was selected. So we had, again, through the bond measure, it was stated that we wanted to try to serve an underrepresented area of the Multnomah County, which is the east side. And we were looking for a parcel that was uh, central to the east side, easily accessible via public transportation, freeway, and that really landed us on the site that we selected here. And I know from early on, I don't know, Fiona, if you want to talk a little bit about what your goals for the site were.
Sure. Yeah, just quickly, I think I am gonna flip hats here for a moment, and I sit in TriMet's transit-oriented development program. And we are just generally really keen on trying to deliver higher density, more community-focused facilities and housing and a variety of kind of ridership generating land use changes around our transit. I'll say we were completely jazzed when we got to kind of partner pretty early with the county on this as a potential site. Our program has a whole kind of land use process where we can change the use of it. And after many conversations with the county, we're really aligned on kind of the vision here. So yeah, just really excited to be working on this project. It's a really awesome community benefit that does have transit, not just with the Max Blue Line, but also the Division FX along Division right there. So yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Anthony.
Thanks,
as-
Fiona.
as-
Appreciate that.
As we go into, to just add to Anthony and Fiona, as we go into the kind of the planning process, that partnership that we established with through forming an intergovernmental agreement, an IGA, with the city of Gresham and with TriMet through the purchase and acquisition of this property really helped us to collectively, both the county and the library system, along with TriMet and the city, to really envision how this library could and will become this catalyst that will have this urban effect in terms of urban renewal and how that will kind of cascade or ripple out. There's a number of sites that are part of the city's kind of bigger vision for planning and development around the old Kmart site to the north of the city hall, to the west of Gresham Station, the work that Metro is doing. So there's a huge effort, I think, that we're going to see that's going to transform this region of East County and that kind of civic aspect of the right in the knuckle of it all being the East County Library right off the TriMet stop. So pretty excited about this location and the benefits that the community will receive from it. Anthony, I'll turn it back to you for anything else.
Yeah, I think actually next slide.
Hey everyone, Brittany Schreiner with Wilst Architecture. Good to see you all. I wanted to touch a little bit more on the specific process that we went through for East County for the community engagement aspect. As Anthony mentioned, we had some community library champions, and in addition to the two he mentioned, we also, for the South Civic Hub portion, which we'll get to in a minute for what that part is, NARA Northwest was involved, and then IRCO, Immigrant Refugee Community Organization, was involved for the programming phase. So between the four of those groups, that was really a good chunk of our engagement efforts in terms of a really kind of a detailed approach that we constantly check back in with them on. And then in addition to that, we led a ton of events and were at events. Miguel, who's going to speak in a minute, was a big part of that. People on the architectural team, landscape team, the county team, having that kind of come as a baseline for the project that this was going to be all about engagement was really important. So you can see here we engaged kind of, taking a look at how many people we engaged, finally looking back is pretty amazing. So more than 5,000 people. And when you take some of those comments and parse them out, we received over 10,000 individual feedback comments. And you can see on the right, the phases and how many people we engaged during each phase. So it was really something throughout the entirety of the project. And before we were even looking at how we're going to develop the site, we were already engaging people through the programming phase, which was pretty awesome. And to this day, there's this sense of accountability. So thinking through, even though we're in construction admin right now, still working through, some of those comments, making sure that everything has been captured in the design in some way or followed through in some way, knowing that there's, constantly moments that we could be looking back and having that accountability to the community. A little bit about how we approach the site. So zooming in from that slide earlier, the site is located on Eastman Parkway and Division, which are both super busy traffic-oriented streets. I think they're both 6 lanes each at that intersection. So we knew that that was going to be a consideration, both in terms of visibility, which was great, and this idea of, it's kind of at the gateway of Gresham's civic neighborhood, but also knowing that they're not super pedestrian friendly and that the site may want to have a more internal focus. And the other big thing that you'll see is the Max Blue Line stop at Gresham City Hall to the north and the FX bus line to the south. So we knew this, it was important to all parties involved that there's this connection between these two alternative transit stops and how we move pedestrians through the site and relate the building in that way. When we looked at dividing the parcels, as Fiona mentioned, the transit-oriented development parcel, we wanted to make sure that we were doing due diligence in terms of getting that to a good size that was developable. So we did some studies in terms of what could be built on that site, making sure that the library going through that programming phase had enough square footage to account for that, the use, and also taking into account the needs for landscaping and pedestrian connections within the library ownership structure. And then what you'll see there to the north is what we're terming the South Civic Hub. It's a temporary name, but this is where the city of Gresham was a great ally in terms of, it was supposed to be a street, so it was zoned to be a street, a local street through there. And they were on board to basically take ownership of that and develop it into a pedestrian plaza. And that has a great relationship to City Hall, which is across the tracks there and has a kind of a plaza of their own. So this relationship across the tracks to a North Civic Hub, a South Civic Hub that then ties into future housing and the library site. And you can see here that parcel of the library and how that began to be broken out. Ava Lane is another local street, so knowing that utility access would be really important from there. And then again, the frontages on Eastman and Division, and then the importance of this pedestrian connection north-south through the center of the site. When we thought of the programming for the site, this is kind of the overall vision. So we thought of it as this gradient approach, basically going from engaging the life of the site, the pedestrians, the people coming from the Max line to the bus line, through the central north-south spine. So those were where the most active uses are. This exploratory zone in the center, where you think about more collections, a central space that you'll see in a moment, and then this focus zone along Eastman that has more quiet areas. You're basically, soft seating, looking out at the street. But really knowing that we wanted to have this kind of porous feel at the north-south spine to engage people inside and outside. And then 2 entries. So instead of facing Eastman or Division, really taking into account this pedestrian-oriented development and facing both entries towards the central access way, but having 2 of them so that they could respond to both people coming from Division, from the south, and from the north, from the Max line. And I'll turn it to Miguel to talk a little about how that translated to our landscape strategy.
Thank you, Brittany, and thank you all for having us. My name is Miguel Camacho. I'm a landscape architect and principal at Place, and we've been partnered with the design team and the county and all the stakeholders for this incredible project. So as Brittany was mentioning, we've early on we were very involved in the conversations about the site and understanding all the stakeholders and the relationships of not only the urban scale of how this library is going to anchor that catalyst for development that Mike was talking about, but then also how do we engage with it in the same thoughtful way that is happening within the building, that vision of the program kind of extends out into the site. And so what this just shows is that, that the corners where we enter the building, we really wanted to emphasize that sense of arrival, that sense of procession almost of how do you approach the site before you and you're basically entering the site before you get to the building. And so start elevating that experience both in a poetic way, but also literally because of grade and things like that we wanted to create these relationships of access and visibility. And then as we think about the footprint of the building and how it relates both to, as Brittany mentioned, the traffic on the south east corners, and how can we ease that activity of the traffic with the more focused areas of the building and create kind of like that buffer zone that not only softens that relationship, but also provides an interesting urban experience for pedestrians and for people coming from the east. The big element really that is helping us articulate this site is the north side where it says gather and participate, what we call the South Civic Hub. It really creates kind of like this urban arrival plaza that connects to the transit of the Max line on the north. But most importantly, this flow and eddy spine that we have bisecting the site. There's going to be a future transit-oriented development to the on the west side of the site. We have been talking to TriMet, and we have been making as many assumptions as we can. There is still a little bit of an unknown entity, but what we really want to ensure is that it's all in harmony and that it creates an understandable flow of connecting between the Vision and the Max line on the north, and we create that corridor that is your pedestrian way of engaging with the building, engaging with the open space, and the pedestrian flow. If we go to the next slide. So these are like the big zones of the site. We identified that entry garden on the southwest plaza as kind of like your urban moment where you arrive from the Vision, and it creates this sense, like I said, like a procession and a sequence towards the entrance on the south. And then whether you're coming on via transit or somebody's dropping you off at the Max station in the South Civic Hub, we also wanted to create kind of like that sense of procession and arrival without having to deal with like having to explain all these different components of the ownership of the site and all these entities that are coming together, and just let it be one unified space that you feel like you have arrived at the East County Library, and then that the site itself will guide you, that you'll get cues from planting, from open spaces, from activities, from the building itself, how it announces its entrances on the corners, and then everything just flows. So yeah, so this is a little bit more of how we started approaching those different zones, and we can talk about it more as we go around the site. So yeah, so here you see a little bit more of that character where we're really trying to blur the lines between this is City of Gresham, this is the county, this is TriMet, and it just feels unified. And creating these moments of the frontage on the east side of the library being a little bit more urban, and that it helps anchor this space. And as you're driving or as you're taking public transit on Division or Eastman, that it announces itself. But then on the other side, it's a lot softer, it's a lot more human scale. The geometries also kind of have these softer, more organic shapes that are trying to create this dance with more rectilinear forms and the lines acknowledging the building, and again creating different scales of spaces for gatherings, for small groups, for circulation, but then also for bigger events at the South Civic Hub with potential for food carts, farmers markets, performances, and then just a clarity of movement of how do you create permeability towards the platform of the Max line, but also as you're moving east-west or north-south, that it all kind of ties together. And I think then I pass it back to Brittany.
Yeah, so this slide shows you kind of jumps forward to how it looks in the current design. So you can see on the left here are some vignettes of what each of those spaces are that Miguel was alluding to. So in the upper left here, what that South Civic Hub will look like in terms of the plaza and the markets, and this idea of a great kind of civic space. And then some of these moments that are part of that engagement gradient. So the outdoor play area for kids, the projection of this auditorium space with a roof deck above. And then this is kind of a reading bench here that has that same curved language, the same language here at the kind of the end of the parking ramp as that goes down. And then finally kind of culminating at this entrance that is shown here, and that's mimicked on both the north and the south. And then this kind of grand entry plaza here along Division. As I mentioned, there is underground parking, so about I think 70 spaces that really helps open up the site. So that was a big move from the beginning, was to locate a lot of utility rooms and parking underground to basically free up the site for these great amenities. And you could see the beginning of kind of how this gradient came into play. So interacting with these outdoor spaces is the what'll be a youth storytelling room, the children's collection, and then the auditorium kind of looking back towards the top of it, and then what'll be a kind of a community maker space here that engages the South Plaza as well. So thinking about that entirety of the gradient of more engaging with that north-south spine. Coming upstairs, looking farther into that gradient. So this central space became a really defining feature, getting light into what's a very large footprint. And thinking about that exploration of the collection and seating areas. And then finally that focus zone along the windows here. We have a quiet reading room that's completely enclosed as well. This is an image of that central space, a teen room that starts to engage, even though it's from up above, that kind of the activity of the north-south spine, and then an image of these perspectival entries that flank the north and south of the site. And just a couple section cuts to get acquainted with the scale of the project, the auditorium here with a roof deck above, the central living room space that is the double height. And then to give you a sense of scale, this is about 34 feet to the bottom of beam, and then these are 13 feet each. So still very, very generous when you're thinking about the smaller spaces. And then a couple notes here. We have radiant floor heating throughout, low velocity airflow along the windows, and then you can see the start of the clerestories here. Cut in the other direction, some solar panels along the roof where we had the maximum space. And then just the scale of that central space, which will be really, really amazing to walk into. And then I'll turn it back to Miguel to talk a little bit about how it's coming together from a visual standpoint on the outside as well.
Yeah, and just kind of like getting down a little bit more to the character and how we're envisioning the spaces as you move through the site, and these ideas of the sequences of arrival at the building. So yeah, this is kind of like a big general view looking east, and understanding the context, and the bigger thing is that we're trying to highlight here is that accessibility and connection to the transit and to the both the existing areas of the city, but then also thinking about how we're going to connect in future potential development that's happening to the west of the site. So here you can see the South Civic Hub on the left side, and that strong relationship to the transit. The articulation that the building has in terms of incorporating as much natural light as an articulation of the roof and the openings of the facade, and sustainability and access to parking, but not at the detriment of pedestrian arrival. So like basically trying to elevate the diversity of ways that you can arrive at the site, and then giving them an elevated sense of importance and care for how that experience goes. One thing that maybe you'll talk more about the conceptualization of the building facade is this inspiration of the forest and this syncopated alternation of vertical elements, evoking the forest. And so with such a strong materiality and tectonics from the building expressing that relation to nature, we wanted to do the same with the landscape. That the planting, the structure of the planting beds around, and how we articulate those spaces that connect you and ground you, not just to the land in general, but specifically to things that are common more in the east side and in general in Portland, and connecting to the culture and the community, the multi-diverse community that exists in this part of the city, and that really celebrating that this is one of the largest libraries in the Multnomah County library system, and that it's that monumentality that we're trying to celebrate all of Portland, but specifically the east side. If we go to the next one, this really shows that clarity that the building announces those entrances. This is coming from the north side, from the Max, and it creates another great opportunity for open space that is covered. And so that's another way that we've seen these big atriums at the entrances, that they are extensions of the site as you're transitioning into the interior of the building, but then they're also programmable and useful areas in the outdoors that can be used year round. And this this amazing, talking about inspiration from the trees, these columns that are basically these guardian trees that are just kind of like announcing this great space, holding it together with the canopy. And then our landscape or the planting areas around it, kind of like evoking more of that understory that happens in the forest, and where you get a lot more texture, get more color, more different seasonal variations. And acknowledging also that this is an urban space. We're not trying to literally recreate the forest. Like we're trying to balance these ideas of connection to nature with programmable spaces, with activities and programs that are extensions of the library and of the city, so that this truly becomes a civic and vibrant component of the community. Next one. There is along the north-south spine, we've talked about these curved elements that are kind of creating these eddies and eddies and flows of that north-south spine. We've had a lot of conversations with the library about the activation and the programming, again, inside, outside of the library, and created this amazing area for children and caretakers. A lot of conversations about art, a lot of conversations about what type of, not necessarily trying to create a playground. It's not really a playground. It's an activity area that evokes, again, ideas of discovery, of imagination, and that allows for opportunities for that interior library programs to extend to the outdoors for part of the year, incorporating, again, themes of nature and such. And so this is the view from the south entry looking north, and how that relationship of these curved elements kind of allow for a nice flow, that you don't just see like a stretch of endless space going away from you, but like there's this mystery and this idea of flow and how you move through the different spaces at different scales. The next one shows the other side, the entry, the grand entry plaza on Ava Lane and Division, and again, this idea of that sequence as you're rising to the entry on the south side. Thinking a lot about accessibility. There's a series of ramps and different ways of accessing the building, but in a very urban fashion, and in a way that is also clear in terms of wayfinding of and identifying how do you move through the site. Signage is also going to be a great way that's going to be implemented, and then we're also talking with RAC about site art that also kind of help us create these moments of identity and cultural clarity there of how you arrive to the space. And then the next one, this is a view from Eastman and Division. Again, this is more like that urban facade, that urban side of things. And this is another great opportunity where we're implementing art on the right side of the building and creating a sense of sequencing, creating these little nooks of activity so that you don't just feel like you're walking on the sidewalk next to a busy street, but like we're trying to buffer it with vegetation and also different moments along the way that engage with you as opportunities for communication with signage and events of programs in the library, but also art and vegetation and places of respite and again connections to nature. And then this is the view again from the north. You can see the South Civic Hub. Most of these renderings are showing just kind of like the every other Tuesday at 9 a.m. where maybe not much is happening, and that's one thing that we really wanted to make sure that those spaces were compelling and that they provided different opportunities for gatherings and scales, and then that they can also accommodate big events, a lot of people, and also alternatives that if you just want to drop your books and not have to go through all the activity, there's a way of bypassing the activity and having clear pedestrian circulations to get to the building. The next one, this is the South Civic Hub, more clearly as it engages with the north entry, and again this idea of different planting languages and textures. We've worked with NARA and TriMet for an Metro's Nature in Neighborhoods grant. So there's a lot of conversations about native species, first foods, Native American art, lighting, and all these different layers of activity that provide a lot of cultural meaning for the whole East County community. But then also all these technical aspects of access, access and maintenance to the platforms. There's a lot of equipment that's out there that this continues to be serviced. So this is all vehicular rated concrete, so that not only you can accommodate food carts and things like that, but also like service vehicles and such. So I think there might be one more. Yeah, so the overview, like we said, we don't know yet exactly what's going to happen on the transit-oriented development on the right corner there. But for the time being, we know that there's going to be a temporary parking structure there, and we're kind of like patiently waiting for the next wave of development that's going to happen there, and how we set up things so that we can continue to engage that future building and integrate everything together. I think this is where we start talking more about that sequence as we enter the building. But this grand entry plaza on the southwest corner really starts drawing you in. The geometries help a lot of kind of like guiding the view towards the entry, and then I can let Brittany walk us through the sequence.
Yeah, so we just want to show a couple last slides of as you kind of enter the building and what that will feel like. So you can see here, as Miguel mentioned, this concept of the forest and the verticality that we carried through from the columns to the facade proportions of the windows and the cladding, which is a high performing concrete that has kind of a custom scallop profile that has that kind of variegated texture that mimics the things you might find in the forest, textures you might find in the forest. So really thinking about this as like this moment of light as you're coming in. Both the entries on either side of the building have that kind of classic architectural concept of compression and release. You could see this board formed concrete box that you enter into. I think it's about an 8-foot ceiling, and then from there you come into the double height space of those kind of slivers of entries on either side. And then you'll basically have collections on either side, both north and south, seating along the walls. And then as you walk through those collections, you'll open up into this grand central space, which is really that kind of the culmination of that feeling of the forest, with the kind of the ground floor, as Miguel mentioned, the outside, it's the native plants in here, kind of the filigree of, furnishings and books and planters, and then having that kind of light-filled canopy up above. And I think the next one is really going to construction and where we are now. So I'll turn it over to Anthony to talk about next steps.
Yeah, thank you, Brittany. So, we are currently under construction. We had a phased permitted process with the city of Gresham. City of Gresham has been a phenomenal partner in this project, as has TriMet. But city has actually allowed us, we started foundations here on this building back in August of last year with just a foundation permit. We just received our building permit here late this spring for the overall construction of this building. So, I mean, we are really integral with the city in trying to bring whatever parameters are needed to keep construction moving forward to their forefront. And they've been working with us collaboratively to make sure that they don't hinder the progress of getting this building erected in time. Just some general notes on the building. The building is about 95,000 square feet. Overall cost of this project is about $163 million. That's all in soft, hard, and land cost. So that kind of gives you an overview of the project. I think at this point, maybe I open it up to, and I know we're up against some parameters on time, and I want to allow for questions and answers. And I see some questions that have been put into the chat here. And Fiona, I think maybe I'm just gonna grab some of them and pass them off. So one of the question was, has the city been involved in placing any design parameters on the development site? Brittany, maybe you can, I know that we've had some challenges that we've worked with the city to address some of their concerns on what we build there and how we built. Maybe Brittany, if you want to talk a little bit about some of those challenges that we had.
Challenges on the site.
Well, with the planning, I know with
planning.
With respects to planning.
Do you mean like permitting?
Yes. Well, and I know we've gotten I think initially through design criteria, we had to have, I think the city's zoning ordinances required entrances actually either on Division or Eastman. So we had to actually get a variance to put the entrances facing the way we're facing. Again, with everything that you heard through how we were setting up the, kind of the civic neighborhood here in this north-south spine, we could put the entrances on Eastman or Division, but they're really, very heavily automobile heavy entrances, not necessarily the most friendly for patrons and for the people that are coming to this facility. So, and I think there were a couple of others, Britt, not to put you on the spot there.
No, now I'm remembering. Yeah, from a zoning standpoint. So yeah, we went through land use. Yeah, the one that Anthony mentioned was the biggest one. So really, because it's defined as this gateway to Gresham at the corner of Eastman and Division. So, you can imagine a gateway in a traditional sense is like an archway that says welcome to, you know what I mean? So the fact that we were basically not having an entry there or this special moment became a point of like, well, how do we, what's the reasoning behind it? And then how do we sell it? So I think some of the things that Miguel talked about in terms of creating this understory, using art at these different locations, really thinking about how do we create a moment on these really intense traffic oriented streets that still draws your attention to the building. And I think the fact that it is this iconic building and, a library and having the visibility of the windows and everything, giving that sense that, understanding that this is a civic moment that's happening here, even though you don't have, kind of a big sign at that moment. And then the other thing was orienting a ramp that comes from the corner of Eastman and Division and then kind of slopes up towards the site. Because we were dealing with a lot of grade change there, which was another deterrent from having any sort of entry at that location. So we wanted to hold grade at the north-south spine to have that be the moment where you could enter into the building. And the other one that came up was the depth of the facade. So we did work with the city to kind of fine tune. I think it ended up being a 4-inch depth, and we have even more now. So making sure that the windows had some depth and the cladding was projecting beyond, so that it didn't, because the building's so big and we had this very, vertical pattern, that it still had that textural quality to it, and some depth.
Awesome. Thanks, Brittany. One of the other questions while I got you here, not to put you on the spot, but maybe you know, what is the percentage of the library is devoted to books versus other space? And David, for context on, libraries really have changed over the decades here. They're no longer just, spaces to archive books, with the digital age. You can access anything really almost anywhere from your mobile device. But, the facility really is designed for the community. And, so there is a requirement. I mean, obviously it's a library, we still have books. And I think our collection is right around 200,000 articles is going to be in this collection. But Britt, do you know the relative proportion size-wise of collection to non-collection space?
I don't offhand, but I know we put that in our programming document. I can pull that up real quick and add it to the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, let me take a look.
And some of the unique features of this library compared to what we currently have in our system or what we don't currently have in our system. So, it was determined that this library should have a large gathering space for the community. So we have a 225 seat auditorium that could be used by the community for community events. The space is flexible enough that we've got retractable seating, so it could be used for floor events or normal stadium seating type events. We also have dedicated teen rooms, youth programming spaces. As we were looking through some of the pictures that Miguel was showing you of the outdoor space, we also have inside the facility, we have new to our library system, an audiovisual studio. So people can come in and utilize the space to do podcasts or video recordings with equipment there. Along with a large makerspace. We have one makerspace within our library system right now. This will be the second that we're adding to our system. This will be the largest one that we have. And then a rooftop terrace. We're out there in East County. You've got Mount Hood off to the east. We needed to capitalize on that view. So we have a rooftop terrace up there, again, open to the community. They can go up there, grab a book, sit out there and enjoy the half year that we have sun, or the third of the year that we have sun here in the Northwest. It's comfortable. So let me see, there was another question. I think Fiona, you asked, we'd love to hear about some of the precedent libraries the team looked at as early inspiration for the modern library design. So this really, so Vali Elke was our library director. She has just retired this spring, but this whole building was her lifelong dream for Multnomah County, was to bring this library and something similar to our central library, which is in downtown Portland, to the east side. So she, through her many years of working within the library system, has been all around the world looking at libraries. And she has had some libraries that, we were pulling ideas from. Additionally, this team here that's talking, we took tours of some of the notable libraries that have won awards here in the United States, which includes the Austin Library in Texas and the library in Missoula. So the Missoula Library in Montana. Both have won awards, world-renowned libraries. We had walked each one of those to pull inspiration and lessons learned of, well, what works operationally for this library? What doesn't work operationally? What works, within the community? How are things functioning, and what seems to be the good and the bad? So we took inspiration from those libraries over the course of the last 3 years. So we've been designing this thing to bring you what you see on the screen right now. Let's see what else we got here. Lessons learned. And maybe, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer this. As a community asset, were there any programming lessons learned from the COVID area, public input? There was actually, and through the presentation, if you notice, there were little bubbles on some of these slides. All of those bubbles were actually community input. So, and a lot of that has been generated from, you know, the COVID era that we went through. So people want to have space around them. People want to be able to access the outdoors. People, again, thus the large covered areas at both of the entrances, the rooftop terrace. Within the space itself, there's a lot of real estate around, along with a lot of community rooms of varying sizes. So smaller to larger that could seat up to, I think our largest community space, aside from the auditorium, can hold 75. Brittany, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correct or not, if it's 75 or 100 patrons. So they can be divided, some of them are divisible up, but yes, we did learn a lot from the COVID area. The HVAC system in here, it's 100% outdoor air. So the HVAC system has MERV 14 filters on it, between 13 and 14, which with the capability of adding charcoal filters to the system. So these are just some of the things that we've learned through the COVID time that we all got to live through.
Maybe you can speak a little briefly on just the use of mass timber, or just that decision around mass timber, and just the whole vision from the kind of early programming phase and how that's played out in terms of the architecture. I know, Miguel, you really spoke to that nature and how we're bringing that from outside to inside, but the use of mass timber certainly on this project is going to be showcasing that natural element.
Brittany, do you want to speak to that a little bit about the mass timber?
Oh yeah, I know we didn't really get into it, but yeah, we've yeah, put a lot into the mass timber of this project. We worked with Timber Lab very early on through Ford S Construction. So just understanding the importance of having them on board early on, all the complexities that go into designing for mass timber, areas where it made sense and where it didn't, such as the auditorium where we do have some steel. But yeah, working through the design of the columns, a little bit of the practicality of what mass timber can do, and then some design features like having that little, you know, gap in the column and how that could be achieved. So thinking about innovative strategies there, but it's been really exciting, and to have a client that from the beginning is on board with, you know, pursuing something like that and having it be integral not only to the design but the sustainability story has been really awesome. But yeah, it's exciting to see them going up in the field, and I was over there this weekend. Just the scale of the timber is pretty mesmerizing.
It is massive when you get next to it. If you're driving in that area, you please drive by, take a look at it. You can see that we've got one floor that's basically up. So this is going to be a beautiful, warm building, approachable building.
One thing I wanted to add really quickly is that, you know, this is on a personal note, that working at a library project has been a dream come true for me. And I think that one of the great things about the design and the process is that there's all these different elements, whether it's connections to nature or the technologies that we're using for construction, that we want people to be excited about. And then a best place to be excited about something that you want to learn more than outside a library or inside a library, where you can actually then go in and look for information more on it. So with the art, or with the strong relationships we're building with NARA about Native American culture, you know, we want to make sure that there's curiosity of other ways of learning. You know, we have our institutions like libraries and things like that, but that there's other ways of transmitting knowledge through different cultures. And so that you say like, oh yeah, maybe I should look into that, and then you can just walk into the library and look for a book about that, and come away learning something new or something more about our world, so very exciting.
There's a question in the chat about what did you have any thoughts about adding solar panels or implementing ideas to save energy in your design? Yes, we did through the course of this whole project. So, even though we've got these bond funds to make these capital improvements and build this, ultimately, as the county, once the funds are spent building the facility, we're responsible for, operating this thing for the life of the building. And we operate for, our buildings are 100-year buildings is what we build for. So we're trying to make our buildings as energy efficient as possible when we're building these things. So, the solar array, part of Multnomah County's criteria is that any new construction, 2% of the cost of the construction has got to be dedicated towards green energy technology. So that's a driver to us utilizing solar panels on this roof. We're actually partnering with PGE and trying to get some grants out there to have battery storage so that we can actually capitalize on all the panels that we have up on the roof, which would normally be just used for the consumption of our energy within the building. But if we could use it for storage and be put back out on the grid, that's a benefit to the community as well. So we're still working with that. Inside the building itself, our mechanical system is it's radiant floor, so it's very energy efficient as opposed to some of the other systems that are out there. And then I don't know if Brittany, if you want to speak to, maybe the cladding on the outside of the building, or at least the orientation of the building with the solar and the overhang.
Yeah, we did several studies on overhangs, and we had, a screening system at one point and really looking at an energy model to see what the most cost-effective solutions were. So that was something that was interesting as we were comparing kind of, desires for the building, for energy load, and also for cost of material, seeing that the overhang itself was actually much more influential than having different screening types over the facade. So definitely maintaining the overhang, which worked well because it was something we really wanted design-wise as well. But yeah, things like that. And I see another question in the chat about child-oriented spaces. I can speak to that a little bit. We have on the ground floor in that northwest corner against that play area that you saw outside is a children's collection and a children's reading room. And that has, a ton of amenities within that, lactation rooms and family restrooms. And we're working with Burgeon, who's a collaborator with the library, to work on some really interesting kind of illustration-based interactive art that will be on the ceilings, things that you could play with that will be part of that space. So really engaging kids, both in terms of the collection there, the art, interactive elements, and then having some technology there as well. And then right above that is the teen lounge. So thinking about different ages. And the teen lounge is really great because we had some great community feedback on that in terms of having 2 different gaming nooks that have color changing lights and beanbag chairs. And we have a lot of flexible type seating, so you could have different types of events there for like mini performances or speaking engagements. So I think between those 2 rooms, there's a great interaction with the kids in the community. And then we also have an AV studio that will have kind of podcast stability and small performing recording spaces. So a lot of pretty fun amenities that hopefully the kids in the community will enjoy.
Thank you, Brittany. I just wanted to kind of point out, it was on one of the maps, but to the east is the Gresham High School, pretty close by. And to the west, there's the Center for Advanced Learning. Both are connected by the Y East multi-use path. So there's a lot of, youth in the area that I think will really benefit on a daily basis, not just from indoor, but also kind of the outdoor spaces as well. We are getting close to the hour. I just want to kind of, before I hand it back to you, David, really give some kudos to the team here, both the county, the design team, the contractor who didn't get mentioned, Fortis, or not mentioned enough. I just want to say everyone's doing an amazing job. This project and this bond requirement has been delivered in an amazingly fast timescale. And they are all being really innovative and creative and problem solver in their approach to this future asset. So I just wanted to share that with the group, really give everyone a pat on the back. And I also just want to point out, I think this is kind of rare, but there's a public partnership going on here. As mentioned, it's a county-led project. TREM has been trying to support it from the TOD perspective. City of Gresham has been amazing, just from design review, permitting, expediting, really being problem solvers. Metro, Nature and Neighborhoods grant. It's pretty rare you see so many public entities really kind of step up, work together, and really try to create as much civic investment as possible. So just wanted to kind of point that out.
Totally would
David?
echo that. I think it's a great example of true collaboration, where everybody really is working together, and there is kind of that one common vision that we're all working towards. So I need to drop off, but thank you, everyone. It's been great presenting today, but I do need to scoot. Bye-bye.
Yeah, everyone does. So, but thank you so much. We really appreciate it. I think those are great comments. It's very obvious in the work that the collaboration is out of this world. Thanks so much for today. I'm just going to quickly note that there are APA credits available for this presentation today, and AIA credits are accessible through self-reporting right now, as AIA Oregon is a preferred host, or whatever that term is. So, and I've been successful in so doing. So APA, AIA, please get those credits. Thanks everybody for visiting today. We've all got to run. We've got great subjects coming up in the next few months. So please, we'll look forward to seeing you back here again. Thanks everybody on the executive committee. Take care. Have a great day. See you soon.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you, Britt.
Take care.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Anthony.